Hey, Slandra, y'all. Welcome. Scotch on the Bayou. I'm Leanne. It's Tuesday, the most fun day in the middle of the week. It's not the weekend. Hey, cheers for Tuesday. So glad everyone's in and to say hello. Yeah, we're gonna have fun tonight. Tonight's gonna be very interesting. As I dug into more and more about what distilleries are doing to take care of Mother Earth, it just got deeper and deeper and deeper. So we're just really going to scratch the surface tonight. But it got me thinking for future videos and things like that. So I'm excited to talk about this. But I'm really excited to say hello to everyone that's in. Sugar Kitty is in. Hello, my friend, and me out to you. As usual, let me know what all y'all are drinking. I have chosen a couple of drams from some distilleries that are working hard to protect Mother Earth. So yeah, I'd love to see what you all are having. This guy over on the West Coast, hey Boo, how you doing? Holla, good to see you, Gregor. Glad you're here. And this Miss Thanks, Stacy. Hey, thanks for being in. We're coming back to you. Don't you go anywhere. Um, I'm glad to see you. And hello, good morning at 2 a.m. For Andrew. We have missed you. We have, but we totally understand if you've had training and had a reason to go to sleep at a decent hour why we have not seen you. But yeah, anytime you can join us is laying you up, and we appreciate it. Thanks for being here, Andrew. Oh, love it. Um, hey, Donner Pass is in. Got another West Coast. Hey, my friend. Yeah, so let us know what you're drinking. Molasses is in and Jimmy Jazz. Yay. That's awesome. Oh, so you're not having to work. Awesome. So you've got an independent Glengoyne 15. Wow, like you kind of threw me. I've not seen too many independent Glengoynes anywhere. Refill bourbon. Woof, 56. That is just so not normal Glengoyne. I bet that's delicious. Yeah. Yeah, Gregor's like, sounds really bad. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's great to see everybody. So Stacy is having a Clan Cola, 7 year, from I can barely pronounce Scotch distilleries, much less Irish ones. Um, but I'm gonna give it the good college try and go for a Scrag. Um, Distillery who are really big on sustainability. That's fantastic. Um, and I want everyone to grab their dram right now and wish Stacy 4 Leaf Whiskey a very happy birthday. Today is her birthday. So Slanjava, hope for many years of good health and even better whiskey in your life. Stacey, I'm so happy to be your friend and thank you for being a part of the support and all that you do for letting people understand what Irish whiskey is. I hope you had a wonderful day. I really, really do. So, um, a big shout out and a big happy birthday to 4 Leaf Whiskey. Today is her birthday. So, woo! And this, of course, I'm going to flood the comments with a bunch of links tonight, guys, because the more I dug, the more I wanted y'all to see. So if you do not subscribe to her yet, subscribe to her. The link is in the chat. So whether you're watching live or on the replay, check out Stacy's um, channel and happy birthday. Happy birthday. So when you get to be a particular age, which you're not there yet, you're still youngin'. But I had a great aunt, um, her name Elvira Vera, and she was 88 at the time that she told me this. She said, 88 sounds really old, but if you say that you're 44 on each leg, it's pretty good. So whatever age you are, just half it, and you're that much on each leg, and sound really young then. I don't know that you'd be drinking age, if that was the case. So, anyway, roughly turning, it's rough turning 25. Okay. You say so. Mm. Seriously, happy birthday. OMG, this is such a good dram. um, I will show that to you in a moment. But good to see everyone. And my girl in. Hey, good to see you, Jen. So sustainability. Yeah, so Earth Day was yesterday. Or is it or is it today? I forget. It's this week. It's like Earth Day, whatever the day is. It's really basically the whole week, right? So it is a good time to be able to like pay attention and look and see what folks are doing. What are we doing to take care of the rock that we're on? Um, and there it can be a polarizing topic. It can be, we're doing a whole lot and other civilizations are doing jack. So what does it all mean? And I think I kind of look at it as I'm really going to date myself here, but that old Coca-Cola commercial where the American Indian was looking at the trash. I mean, I like, I think about, when you go in to do something, when you go hiking, when you go camping, when you go somewhere, you want to leave a place better than you found it. And I remember that particular that commercial made a big impact on me as a kid because I was like, "Oh, I've got to take care of the land." And I mean, we have a Native American heritage in our family, and we need to take care of the land. And so there is something to say about that, about our personal responsibility. And then when you get into like a big global and corporate kind of thought, you think, well, okay, more money, more ability to take care of things. So when you look at that in the sense of the whiskey we like to drink, and you say, okay, well, why does it matter? And I think part of that is looking at the process of making whiskey, what goes into the whiskey, what resources from the land, from the world does it take, And it takes a lot of water, and it takes a lot of energy, and it takes malt, and it takes yeast. All those things are natural things in the world, you know. And then there's all the logistics of getting things to different places. And you think about, remote places, and getting bottles to the Isle of Raasay. You think of, how do you fuel the stills? You think about the amount of CO2 that's coming off of a fermenter, just off of fermentation and all. So all of that kind of adds up, and you look at what you're drinking and you're going, that's a big impact. And so I think it's pretty cool that, not only have certain distilleries and conglomerates even decided to make a statement and to do some things. What I'm going to talk a lot about tonight is basically what the Scotch Whisky Association has worked on trying to impart. I would love to hear from you all about what it is y'all have as far as sustainability. What do you have seen in other distilleries, even in U.S. distilleries? Westland is a great example of people that are doing some really cool stuff here in the States. So yeah, so we'll go in there and we'll talk about all kinds of good stuff tonight. Hey, Rob's in. Good to see you. Yeah, definitely. Hello and happy Earth Day. Woohoo. Um, that is awesome. Yes. Yes, there is the birthday girl. You came in right after we all but sang happy birthday. Good to see everybody. Hey, got some new folks in today. Nice to see you. So I missed Roy's show. It's on my go back and watch list. Because work's been really kind of. But you were interested in hearing what Thompsons are doing in Dornick, with the natural energy I'll have to go back and watch that for sure. So yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that. As far as the SWA, Scotch Whisky Association goes, um, they're looking at four major areas, um, and um, basically looking at climate change, reducing emissions, looking at caring for the land, making sure the land is, and with that, water. So all of that kind of natural um, sense there. Sustainable packaging is another really big one. And that's kind of I definitely have a few, a few thoughts when it comes to packaging. Um, yeah. So, and then water conservation. And that's it can be part of responsible land use, but water is pretty precious. I know we've got some folks out west, and the further west you go, the harder it is to find water. So when you look at that and you think, okay, well, Scotland has an abundance of water. Well, the water, the ocean levels are also rising. And it's, again, it can get very political. We're not going to do political tonight, but we are going to talk about some things that are measurable that folks are doing in distilleries and making an impact. But I also, throughout this whole thing, want you to think about, and we'll talk more about it towards the end of the hour, what impact does it make on your whiskey consumption or purchases, and our attitudes towards a distillery based on their activities of sustainability? So we'll come back to that. Um, so one of the first things I want to talk about is like the whole climate change, or really reduction in emissions. Um, you know, One of the SWAs, and as the Scotch Whisky Association, all the members, all the distillery members of that, and it's kind of like, I guess, their lobbying group is the way I kind of think about that, is saying, okay, collectively, we're going to try to do these things, and being net zero emissions by 2040. So, they got 16 years to go, being net zero. Some are already almost there, which is great. But that is really pretty cool. Let me show you this one. So I'm going to go ahead. This is off the site. I'm going to go ahead and pop these links in for those who are watching now, or maybe watching in the replay and want to go back. If you want to drill down into some of the finer details, there are lots of links from the links. So we'll go over some of those. But looking at this, how do you reduce the carbon footprint? And they have all these buzzwords, right? What does that really mean? The greenhouse gases, anything that can blow up the ozone, make us hotter, and make us not so inhabitable. We just talked about Buna 2 weeks ago, right? And look at old Buna here. Buna is one of the things that they've done, and they're investing 6.5 million pounds in a new biomass facility. So they're going to be able to save 3,500 tons of CO2 per year. And be able to do that. So where is that going? And we know the distilleries ideally will sell, well, actually don't even sell it. They usually just give the draft, the spent grains, off to farmers. So cattle, whoever, I don't know if, does sheep beat that? I don't know if they do. But for farmland, farms to have that draft, because that is a byproduct of the overall process, right? Also looking at the idea, and the forest biomass, wood chips from low value timber felled on Isla. They ain't a whole lot of trees on Isla. Okay. It really isn't. Now not like in the high, not like in Speyside or something like that, comparable. But what they are doing, the wood chips and being able to use biomass, basically refuse, extra stuff that just would decompose anyway. It's dried out and it's used as fuel. So they, I need to talk to Dave to see if they have this completed. But because of that, they're using steam energy, right? So instead of fossil fuels, they're going straight into that. Again, this will take you down another link, will take you down another rabbit hole if you really want to get into a lot of this. So some of the other things that when you look at that too, so Westland, Jennifer and I went to Westland last year. So a couple things about Westland out in Seattle. This is Garyana. Garyana is an oak species that they use, but they don't use live trees. They only use felled trees to make the casks of Garyana oak. So they're trying not only to not wipe out what's there, but they're actually planting and growing more things there. Westland's got a couple of things that they're doing in addition to capturing. They have a gizmo that actually takes all the CO2 off of their fermenter, and then they sell it, and they are actual. They contain it, and it can be used for fizzy drinks. It can be all kinds of things that they can, where someone would need CO2, but they're able to get that out of their system and capture it and control it. So that's really pretty cool too. Where did I get this? In which edition? This is a 2019, the 4th edition. And this was a fluke. This was at a store here in town, and I don't know how they got it, but I found it and I took it home. So I was like, yeah, I gotta have that one. So yeah, so that's another thing for when you look at the CO2 capturing part of it. Stills use a lot of energy, right? And traditionally, it had always been fossil fuel fired. So from safety standpoint, a lot of them are going heated by steam. Well, how do you get the steam? Are you still using fossil fuel for the steam? And a couple of folks are using some biogas. So in Louisiana, we have a huge crop of sugarcane. That's our South Louisiana is a big thing. So bagasse is is like all the refuse left from the sugar cane after it's processed and the sugar is extracted. It's all the dried vegetation and pieces that we are using here in South Louisiana as fuel and turning that fuel into biofuel that's then running, the plant. I mean, running the actual sugarcane mill and that type of thing. We have three or four wood pellet companies here in Louisiana, and they take the pieces and parts off of when lumber is being milled for construction or for paper product or whatever, all that stuff that's left over, this company takes that and basically makes it into these wood chips. And the biggest export for that is the UK. So the UK gets a lot of Louisiana wood by way of outside of Baton Rouge going over there. So that biofuel, something that was going to be wasteful anyway, is now turned into a fuel, of course, that's still burned. And then you think about that. Okay, well, it's still being burned. Is there, that emissions? Does that count? All of those things together, still the goal is to be net zero by the time it's 2040. So again, a lot of things to get going there. I'm gonna say, hey, BR Scotch. Hey, Kevin, good to see you. Thanks for being in. Uh, don't ever worry about being late. You're always here for the party. Hey, Trooper. Nice seeing you. Getting off the rig floor. No worries, friend. No worries. Be safe out there. Be safe. Yes, a wonderful smell. It's the fall. When you pass the sugarcane mills and you can smell like that almost burnt sugar, kind of, or not very environmentally friendly is when they're burning the fields off. But yeah, we're all working on it, right? And that's the big thing. It's everybody's kind of working on it. Um, so biofuel, we think about distilleries that are doing that. Royal Lochnagar, they use biofuel to run their facility and their stills. Neckman is a huge. I mean, their whole vibe is sustainability. You know, they're very close to Ardnamurchan, but I swear it takes a day to get there, even from there. Um, so not only are they using 100% recycled products and glass and things like that, but I found it very interesting that they do this, that um, they will recirculate their water through a cooling pond instead of trying to cool it down with chemicals or run a lot more water over it to cool their cool their spirit down. So it's just the idea. It's actually not their spirit, is so they're using the water that's heated, they're cooling it down by running it through pipes in a cooling pond. So it pulls that energy out without having to expend energy or to have any kind of fuel or chemical that would actually do that. Ardnamurchan, beautiful. Ardnamurchan. I'm going to have some more of that Madeira that I had last week. They heat and power all from local renewables. So they have their biomass is fuels their boiler, and it's wood chip. There's a lot of forestry, especially over on that west side of Scotland, and hydroelectricity. So they've got a nearby river. They're pulling, uh, energy off of that. And it also provides the distilleries cooling water. So again, they're using a natural area, natural resources that don't make a negative impact on the land. Deanston, Graham and I went to Deanston this summer, and it's right there on the river, and they capture the energy off of the river to power the place. It's really, really cool. It is. Oh, goodness. Mm. Lots of talking. So I'm going to have my first dram. Well, I've been having it. Oh, man. Let's say hey to this. Hey, man. Good to see you. Thanks for being in, Martin. Yes, finally. Good to see you. And I know that you were excited about this topic. So chime in, folks. So y'all know I'm a fangirl. I love Racing. So this I have a backup bottle, thank God. But this is the Scottish whiskey distillery of the year 2022. Is it 22? Yeah, bottling. And this was unpeated in Four Roses and Quercus Humboldti. I kept saying Humboldti, but I think it's Humboldti. Either way, I'm not up on all the genus species of oak, but it's Colombian oak. And that's what I'm having right now. And as you can tell, I kind of like it. It's been a really good bottle. So, what are they doing at Race? They are actually bringing in someone who understands hydrogen. because they're looking at, and I'm going to read this because I know I'm not going to get it right. So they're looking at the development of direct electrolysis process so they can turn the waste distillation products into hydrogen. And then they're planning on using the hydrogen to power the whiskey distillation process. So I really, this is on my list to talk to Alistair Day about and go, wait, what? So all I'm thinking, hydrogen is not exactly an easy gas to element to deal with. um, so how do you do that in a contained way to where you can run a distillery on a remote island? Interesting, very, very interesting. Um, so yeah, everybody's doing a little bit. Glendronach, second oldest distillery. And previously, they had powered all their steam boilers for distillation with oil. Now that's been converted to LPG, or liquid petroleum gas. I think that's our. I think it's our natural gas. I'm not sure if that's the same kind of thing, but definitely has dropped overall gas emissions from that. Glenfiddich was the first in as far as a global brand, spirits brand, to convert their fleets to a biogas. So their trucks and their lorries are all running on green biogas that was made from the residue of their distilling process. That's really big. I know that they're putting a big one in Alberfeldy. So there's some really pretty cool things that are going out there. When you look at volume, when you look at a Glenfiddich, that's what, 21 million liters a year, up against Ardnamurchan, that's maybe, I don't know, 500,000 a year. That's a pretty big bang for the buck if the big guys are doing this, and it's going to take the big guys doing it. But it was the small distilleries that were really committed to it, I think, that really wanted to get it in there. Humboldtii. Thank you for letting me know that, because I did record I did record a review of it, and I so did not say it that way. And I'm like waffling as to whether or not I should redo it, just because I don't know how to say Humboldtii. I don't remember Alistair saying it that way, but I trust you. Believe me, I do. That's why I love it. Everybody can kind of understand and get there. Oh man. But this one, it's so clean and crisp. I just really love it. Little things like a diesel forklift. How about we just use, an electric one? That's it. It's great. But even there, there is a wash at some point, right? If it's electric, somewhere the electricity had to be made. Same thing with electric cars. At some point, electricity had to be made. So is that being made in a good way? Again, we're talking about emissions. We're just kind of really are still stuck on that one. And I'll bring Westland back again. Something that Jennifer and I were there. Hey, Martin, no worries. Did you win? I really need a picture of you getting ready for pickleball. I really need that in my life. Martin, that's awesome. That's great. But Westland started out, they were importing a lot of their grain from Scotland. They were importing sherry casks over. And they are winding all that down, if they haven't done so completely already, because they did not want to. I mean, first of all, it's pretty expensive to, dollar wise, profit wise, to bring those resources over from Scotland or from, the European casks, sherry cask. The other part is it takes a lot of energy, and it adds to the footprint of the logistics of getting those things over to the States. So they've run their focus and investment in investing in um, actually growing the grains that they need in Washington State, invested in higher education research on that. So they've kept those dollars there in the state as well in education. And then in addition to their own oak, they're sourcing things closer and then reusing now their casks. So they've had enough casks for a while that they're reusing their own previous single malt casks again. So they're basically going to not buy sherry casks anymore. So what does that do? Are they gonna have sherry influenced whiskey anymore? I don't know, but that's a business decision they're making based on principles that they want to have as least impact as possible. They also have their own peat field. We're going to get into peat because that is a particular that we could talk about peat and conservation all night long. But they have their own peat section, where they're very diligent about only taking so much. And I think so much as in maybe 5 yards per year, if that. I have to go dig some more on that, but yeah, it's they're really they're definitely walking the walk. They've won a lots of awards because of what they've decided to do on that. But yeah, reducing the amount of energy and exhaust and everything else that takes to get things over from one place to the other. Pretty interesting. So the climbing change. So that was that first link I gave you. Good deal. Awesome. Oh, I love how everybody, it depends on, Andrew's talking about the Balti eye pronunciation. Yeah, it's one of those things. I could just blame it on the Southern accent and call it good. And I might still do that, y'all. I really would. Hey, Whiskey Nose is in. No worries about being late. I've been waxing poetically about carbon reduction and emissions reduction in in some of our favorite distilleries. And again, it's not just Scotland. I'm concentrating on Scotch, but in what SWA has been putting together, but definitely having some other stuff. So one of the other big things, is caring for the land, and water particularly. This is, let me get you this link. Our next link from the SWA is all about the water stewardship framework. There's a little bit of double speak in here, if you will. This particular document, this is the link I put in the chat. This one talks about what they'd like to do about water. Water's tricky. Who owns water? Where does it come from? Water sources are a really big deal. When you think about Octomore Spring or Loch Gorm, or you think about, there was a couple of times where distilleries have shut down because there wasn't enough water. They got to have water. So the water has to go in the product, but the water has to be there for cooling, and many different ways of cleaning the whole 9 yards. So this is the outline of where they'd like to go with water conservation. And it's really, quite frankly, it's quite loose. But I'm not so sure that they have a whole lot of leeway. And part of it is that they're trying to, so since 2012, they've improved the water efficiency by 22%. So what does that really mean? um, you know, again, we talked about Necknian using recycled waste heat and water. So they're recycling and cooling, using a cooling pond for that. Um, it also depends on like the size of the size of a company and where they're located. Um, there are things that you can do remotely, so that you may have a little bit more real estate and ease of use than if you are a distillery in the middle of an urban area. So like Hollywood they're doing some really cool things, but they're completely downtown. Um, and it's not like they have cooling ponds, but where Negian would have the land and be able to do something like that. Um, so, for example, like Tobamori, they're making 700,000 liters a year. So for them to make radical changes is not as easy as something that maybe have a huge plant, like a Glenfiddich or a Balvenie, a Macallan, um, that are just pushing out of um, mass amounts of product. Uh, but even in that sense, they're looking at Tobin in particular, are looking at ways to be able to do what's called a higher gravity brewing. Basically, it just is a concentrated. You're using less fresh water, and so it results in a more concentrated wort because it's more concentrated and a lower water amount. Then it requires less energy to actually boil off that water, and so that helps reduce. That helps within the distillation process. But even that, you know, on the scale of a Tobamori, a small distillery as opposed to a larger one, there's some definite things there that kind of have to be done. You can only do so much, but the point is they're doing it, right? They're doing it. Good morning, Ian. Nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Um, Very cool. So, Mark Gillespie's recent whiskey cast. I don't know. I haven't. I'll have to go listen to that. It was with Bean Centauri covering the green fuel for direct fired stills. Was intriguing. Awesome. If you whiskey cast and Mark, I got to meet him. Jennifer, you might remember him. We met him up at the Victoria Whiskey Festival. Super like freaky knowledgeable guy. And the whole library of his podcasts are amazing. So thank you for letting me know about that. I will definitely go back and listen to that. Thank you so much. I'll go find the link of that and I'll put that in the comments section for this as well. So folks can get in there and take a look at that one. So, above and beyond the land use, and this is, let me see. Trying to see what that was the water framework. This is the link about just overall land use that from the SWA. Caring for the land. It's this one. It talks about some of the things they're doing, but particularly the peat lands. So that's what I want to kind of chat about right now. I don't know if this was the Ardmore peatland water sanctuary. It's pretty interesting that they're trying to stave off some areas for preservation of that. And again, each of these have another link to where you can just like really drill down into the minutia of it. What I want to share with you again is this particular document. If you really get into the peat, this is something okay, definitely didn't copy and paste that last link very well. Hey Graham. Glad you could join us, friend. This particular document, and I think, I don't know, I want to say it's probably 10 or 15 pages, is pretty lengthy, and I want to literally digest this thing. But talking about the commitment to responsible peat use is a really big one, because we all love our Isla whiskey. We love Highland Park. Having cut peat, it's a pretty cool thing, and it's almost, I'm gonna say, really a spiritual thing. It's just a very honorable, like, to be able to say and to be out there in a peat bog and understand, that first foot of soil has to come up and be preserved, and then you're going down deeper into that to cut the peat, and then restoring that to where it can go. There's just so much of it. This really dives into the number of and what the percentage is. Only 3% of the planet's land surface is let's see, wait, where is it? The sizable percentage of peatlands can be found in Scotland that cover an estimated 20% of the country's land mass, around 1,600 million tons of carbon. So you would think that sounds like a whole lot, but it really isn't. So when you look at what's been developed and how much is used, and the fact that the distilleries don't really control the peat, it's usually a third party or farmers or something like that. It's like, who can do what about it? So there's really these particular covenants that they're trying, the priorities of what they're trying to do is the responsible extraction, and just taking what is needed, and having best practice guidelines on being able to have the minimal impact, and working with the different groups, the Scotch Whisky Research Institute and the Maltsters Association of Great Britain, just kind of getting a consortium together to do that, and then looking at restoration and stewardship, taking care of what you got and doing what you can to keep things going, and to reinvigorate the peatlands. The only thing about this is the factor of time. It takes a long time to make peat. So that in itself is something that is interesting. It also kind of hits close to home because of our coast. Trooper will tell you about this. Trooper's going to be really close to having oceanfront property at some point where he lives. It's our coastal erosion is a really big thing. When you lose it, you lose it. To lose peatlands would be an abomination, right? So being able to do what we can to take care of that is super important. Goodness. Let's see who all is in. Hey Graham, you said yeah, I thought you were there at Nickney and Risley. I know I'm probably saying it wrong. And interestingly said that they increase annual output, that if they increase the annual output, extra transport bottles would mean they'd lose their B Corp accreditation. So their output is limited. Yeah. So it's kind of a tipping point there, right? Because they're not easy to get to. Um, it takes energy, effort to take all those resources and put it in that beautiful place to make whiskey. So how do you offset that to where you can be net zero and be the so in the States we have LEED. LED is a stage of um, sustainability, and then particularly in construction, and then the B Corp accreditation I think is something over there for sure. Wow, yeah. So I'm dropping lots of information. This is really kind of heavy stuff. The peat discussion is something I really want to pick up later. Try to find some folks to get kind of in a round table and talk more about that. I think it is so interesting, um, because peat's still used, and some folks still use it to heat their houses. Peat's still used to, flavor the malt. And it's not just Isla, peat's all over. So interesting, interesting. Um, so that brings us over to, and I haven't quite gotten through this one. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna be one and done tonight, y'all. I've been talking too much. Mm. So this particular topic, uh, this one kind of gets to me, and it's sustainable packaging, y'all. I, I, I just, I think I've told y'all about. I have a bottle of tomatin back here. That, that bottle right there, that was in like this wooden box, and then it was in this felt bag. Like, what the hell am I gonna do with the felt bag, right? I have a whole entire video on how to cut the cardboard tubes down to make a glass holder. What do you do with those things? Put them in the recycle bin. Did they actually get recycled? Nah, that's a question. So looking at that kind of thing, again, bringing up NetN, all their glass is 100% recycled, right? Um, so having that limited packaging, this is our final link for tonight. I feel like I'm in school. And dropping all of these um, things. If you care to go back and read any of this fun stuff, there we go. So the packaging, looking at sustainable, the cork, the wood, anything that works on being able to keep things going on the packaging, um, and not just the cardboard, right? But is the labels, the cardboard, is it all recyclable? There's metal, there's glass, there's paper. Um, is there money being put in the product rather than in the presentation? And I think there's some folks, there's some companies out there that I think don't really care about the packaging part. That kind of bugs me. Um, but yeah, but looking at trying to use post-consumer recycled products, fibers, things like that. Um, it's interesting to see what they're trying to instill as far as guidelines for those types of things. Um, if they don't come with a tube, then how are they getting to market safely? How are they getting that kind of packaging done? If they're coming in a tube, they're still going to go in a box in a tube, in a case. So I don't know. It's interesting. Um, so Scotch distilleries offer bottles without boxes, tubes, etc. at reduced prices. They don't in this country, friend. They might in yours. But there's no discount for a lack of a tube or a box in the United States of America. I can tell you that. Unless we just don't see it, and it's that price coming over, but not to the consumer. That's for sure. Um, Um, so Coke and Pepsi manage with tubes, but I still see the advantage for shading from the sun. That is true. I mean, it definitely, um, if you if it is exposed, um, but I just like I can't think of like how that exposure would really be a big deal if it's just a shipping thing. It is very much a marketing thing. There's so much you can put, just so much you can put on an actual bottle, but you can put a ton more of information on a box. But if the box can at least be, I mean, that's one thing about Race. I like their box. Their box is bare minimum corners, basically. And it highlights this part of the bottle. So you get to see the color of the whiskey right away. Um, and it's, uh, it has a ton of information on them. It's light, it's relatively lightweight. But you know, I've got Glendronach that comes in the tubes, and they're pretty sturdy. um, I don't know. I think that's a preference thing too. You know, definitely a preference thing. Now that I do remember when that did first come out, where they were like, you know, order it with or without the can, right, or the packaging. Um, and you bring up too. That reminds me, with Brooklotti's new cardboard wrap kind of casing that we've seen on that 18, is it a 16 and an 18? Um, that's kind of like that pressed cardboard. That's the shape of the bottle. Um, I found that's pretty interesting, and I would imagine that that's some recycled material in that as well. But yeah, um, yes, that would be this. That would be this one to show you how to upcycle those tubes. I have an entire, I have an entire bin full of those tubes to do that all over again because I'm running low. And then I take them and I spray paint them and I put a Scotch on the Bayou sticker on them. And when people buy one of these glasses, I stick them in that and ship it out. And it's, you know, it's going to protect the glass. And I got to reuse that tube. So yeah, that's fun. Great plug there, Molasses. Thanks. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, I'm looking at some of my other bottles, trying to get off to think offhand what some of these distilleries are doing. And going through this and doing a little research taught me that I don't know what my favorite distilleries are doing. I looked some of them up, and some of them have a lot of lip service on their websites about they really care about the environment, but they weren't telling me what they were doing. So one of the things I want to ask is, does it matter? Does it matter in the sense we know it matters? Every little bit can help to save Mother Earth and that. But are you more likely to try a whiskey based on a distillery's sustainability practices? Um, does that make that interesting to you? I have to say, I was all giddy about Ardnamurchan. Like, oh, and they do this. Oh, I like them even more now. But I liked Ardnamurchan's whiskey first. And then I found out that they do a lot to try to, you know, be good stewards of the land. Um, so does that have an effect? If your favorite is in lacking in the responsibility of sustainability, does that have an effect on your attitude towards that distillery? Does that kind of shade your enamored thoughts about your favorite? I'd love to hear from what you all are thinking about on that. Um, Very interesting. So Ian says that the tubes are good protectors for planting new trees or herbs and vegetables. That's pretty cool. I could see that. So you just take the bottom out of them and then redo them. I mean, put it in there. It would be good for a good tree because if your weed whacker wouldn't hit the bark. That would be good. Yeah, Graham, it was that 18-year-old, the paper mache kind of thing that tore on removal. Oh, well, that's kind of a bummer. um, and whiskey in clear bottles does need packaging to prevent the liquid from being light struck. So, at what point though? I mean, like when the consumer gets it, or I guess even when it's on the shelf, because you don't know how a retailer is going to display the whiskey, which is why Lagavulin uses dark green glass, but a lot of theirs is also in a box. I'm not winning here. I'm definitely not winning here. Hmm. So let me know if it makes a difference to you. Are you proud of your favorite distilleries if they do things like this? If they consciously work on reducing emissions, you know, if they are looking at what their water policies are, that type of thing. And I think right now, a lot of them, I think it's still kind of a cool thing for folks. I mean, to think about, not that it's a hipster thing. I really think it is important. I absolutely think it's important. I think depending on how it's spun and how, if it looks like it's just lip service or if it looks like the distillery is really committed. Some of these distilleries are dropping a lot of money on stuff. Usually that means, hopefully that means there's change there. But I'd like to see it. So I've literally have just scratched the surface on this. It's something that I want to kind of watch and come back and find out, like, what are those measurable, actionable items that are happening? And does it have an effect on the way the whiskey tastes? Is because the production is different. There's so many more questions we could delve into. Ian saying that if you think a company is trying to be sustainable, then they deserve accolades. Just now, Scotch distilleries are leading the way in the UK for new green technologies and sharing. That's awesome. And I think it seems that it is genuine. Especially when you look at Ardnamurk and Neckman, the ones that are just vehement about it. That that would be good to know. That you love the green Ardnamurk glasses with the clear glass strip. Yep, like these up there. To see the level of the bottle. Those are very cool. But you have to wonder about, like, the business case for those. They've got to be more expensive. Is there an issue with recycling those? And I mean, there was a whole glass shortage too for a while. So that I can see has been a really big factor into how a lot of people are putting and trying to get their bottles, whether they're sourced new glass or recycled glass and that type of thing. Because anything that's recycled still takes energy to recycle it, right? So, Rob, great point. That sustainability is becoming more and more important to you in all things. So, not just whiskey. Yeah. Even things like clothes. I mean, we're trying to downsize that and get rid of stuff in the house, and the number of clothes that we have is ridiculous. And I don't want them going, I just don't want them to go to necessarily to, they're good enough to where they don't need to be thrown away. But even if it goes to a thrift store and then they don't sell, I mean, like, what happens to them? We're trying to find places that would actually use the clothing, just all those things. It's like when you buy something, you have to I think that's the point where you have to, like, put the brakes on and go, do I really need it? And what's the exit strategy for this thing? And And clearly, we don't think like that all the time. But it is something to try to consider. The older I get, the more important this stuff is. You know what I'm saying? It is important. This is as I said, this is the only rock we have to live on for sure. Um, but I know it's a little different topic tonight for sure. Definitely. Um, have you highlighted bottles with thinner, lighter glass that reduce their impact on several levels? No, I didn't even know that was a thing. You know, um, thinner, lighter glass. Because there's some of these bottles that you could hurt somebody with, like that Bladnock Adela. You could knock somebody out for 3 days with that thing. It's so big. Um, you know, Rasay's is well, it's not filled because that's almost empty and that's full. But yeah, Mortlock's bottle, that's some thick glass. And part of that is a conscious decision to showcase their whiskey in a certain mindset, right? So um those are all things you have to a company has to consider um when they're determining that. It's and I'm sure it's a big balance. All of it's a balance, of sustainability with the quality of the product, that with being able to sell the product so that you can make more, and it is a big it is a big circle. It's a big problem, and which is why there's not this really pretty put a bow on it solution, right? So, interesting. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Cheers. Um, but yeah, I hope it's been a little different conversation tonight. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. Oh yeah. Yeah. And those 750s that we've had here in the States for sure, changing to 700s, um, increased, means the more production of glass, increased weights and packaging. Um, the thing, the thing is that size went down 50 milliliters. The price didn't, not here anyway. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Not something we're going to solve tonight, but good fodder for discussion, right? So, um, I think I don't know that the whole sustainability actions have determined whether or not I'm going to, really get into a particular whiskey, but I do feel like now I want to learn more about what each distillery is doing. I want to know, especially after going out to Westland. I mean, they drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak. They're all about it. Um, and you kind of get it in passing at other distilleries. And that's okay. Their main priority is to make good whiskey, which I'm very thankful for. Um, but I think as time goes on, they're gonna have to do more and more. I would love for the rest of the world to do more and more. I think the usual suspects are the ones that all of this hangs on. And there are other places in the world that could do a whole lot more than what they're doing. Um, you could write a book on the subject. I'm telling you, scratch the surface, literally. I mean, just the peat discussion alone would would that would take up a couple of volumes in and of itself. Kevin's wanting to know whether or not he should stop dropping off his bottles to reduce his carbon footprint. Uh, my house literally is on your way, so it is not a problem for you to stop and drop off bottles, my friend. It is not a problem at all. So I think you're actually doing because I recycle all those bottles, so we're good. You're so funny. But yeah, well, again, a lot more to discuss on another date. I've got some ideas about some things I really want to dig into. Again, the peat thing is really getting me because it's just if you have the occasion to go to Isla and you come out like there at the airport and all those peat bogs are out there, that's where we particularly were centered on cutting peat. And you just think, you've got all these distilleries on this island. Everything that you need has to be sent to that island. That peat is inherently there, but there's only so much of it. And how can you use it to the best and most responsible way so that generations from now can still have access to it? It's really going to be something. Cool. So Roy's got heads up to Aquavite for his recycled reviews. Did he release one today? I'm like totally out of the loop on stuff. Oh, I get it. Recycled. Yes, his recycled reviews. And if you look at one, so right here, can y'all make out the little wheelie bin up on my? So I sent Roy one a couple of years ago, and he has this great video at the end of one of his recycled reviews. It was the one he got snowed, like he's outside and it's snowing on him. But yeah, he does this really funny bit at the end with the wheelie bin. But yeah, that's important. Friend, artificial peat. Oh, I think that's called liquid smoke. And if you don't have a smoker, you use liquid smoke to no, just no. That's a hard no. That's a hard no. Okay. I was wondering about that. I even saw something that Terry put about that. So peat and whiskey, Mike Billett. I will have to check that out. For those who don't know, Graham has probably the best library in the UK of whiskey books. So if you're trying to find a whiskey book, try to find him, and he will know about it, and then at least then you can try to figure out how to source it. That's for sure. Hey James, good to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Given what some people say about Lafroig, you could just burn some tires instead. just burn some tires instead of peat, and you get about the same thing, right? You do not. You have an uncle that puts drops of liquid smoke in his whiskey. That is a riot. Oh, that is hilarious. I hope everybody knows what liquid smoke is, our UK friends. It's basically liquid smoke in a little tiny bottle that you add to dishes to kind of give it a smoky flavor. And it is not Lafroigish, but it is a bit barbecuey. That's for sure. Do we cover corks? So yeah, corks or new glass stoppers or screw caps. Oh yeah. Well, even like wood tops, for example. So the wood top on the cork, the natural cork, is and the glue not working well, and then that's a big preference thing. I mean, Ian, those are almost like fighting words, depending on who you talk to. I don't know too many people that are big fans of the glass stoppers. They kind of look cool, but I don't know. I know there's usually kind of like that plastic ring around it to kind of make the seal. I don't know. And screw caps have a certain marketing connotation, I think, that a lot of people don't like. So it's interesting. That's really cool. Awesome. Liquid smoke is the work of Lucifer. That's hilarious, Rob. And yeah, it is a lazy man's way of smoking stuff. That's for sure. So circle back a couple things. I've talked about Rasse a little bit. I hope everyone saw the big news that R&B, the parent company of Isle Race, got all the permits that they needed to start work on Magerhanisch, their distillery. They're going to be doing just outside of Campbelltown. I'm so stoked for Alistair and company and all of them. They have bought the Drury Farm. It looks over the water on the west side of the peninsula. It's really close to the airport and the Magerhanisch golf course. So when you're coming down the road from Kennicreg into Campbelltown, you're going to go right by it, and it is going to be absolutely glorious. I'm so happy for them. I will. I cannot wait to see it. It's going to be fantastic. So that was really big news. We had Stacy's birthday earlier. The LSU women's gymnastics team, Go Tigers, won the national championship this weekend. So again, we're just got trophies all over Baton Rouge. That's a really big, important thing to us down here. But yeah, so we've lots of crazy things going. We'll be back next week. And then I'm going to take a break for the summer, but we will be doing a live show on one Sunday afternoon so that we can have a decent hour for our friends over across the pond. So maybe Graham, Andrew, and James can actually sleep at a normal time instead of being up at 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning. So I will let you know next week what that first Sunday show is going to be. And my hope is that we'll be able to get some folks from some of the distilleries and maybe even some of our Camp Drammer people that are over there to be a guest on our Sunday show. So be in tune for that. I hope everyone had fun. Send me information on things that you find out about sustainability. If there's a particular topic that you want to cover, I've got my list. I'm writing down. Graham, I did catch your independent bottle suggestion last week or week before when it was. So all of those things, just hit me up, scotchinthebayou@gmail.com. I hope everyone has a really good week. Be cognizant of what we're doing to Mother Earth. She can turn on us real quick. Those of us in hurricane world understand that. But at any rate, I hope you have a really great week. We will see you again this time next week. And until then, drink well. Sanji, y'all. Thanks for being here tonight.